Cold, cold world. Yeah. Let me take y'all back, man.
Paternity leave, something very typically Swedish. Swedish paternity leave is one of the most extensive in the world. The Swedish state allows parents to take up to 480 days of parental leave together. 60 days out of these are reserved for the father. Not only is this a very generous amount of time, but it's also paid by the Social Security Agency. In 2012, Swedish dads took 24% of the total parental leave. Many people associate this with Sweden. When you type the words paternity leave into Google, the first search suggestion is paternity leave Sweden. You might be wondering why we say that this is typically Swedish. Paternity leave exists in most countries, right? This is correct. Most countries do have paternity leave. But if you compare to different countries, you will find that Sweden's paternity leave is exceedingly generous. As you can see on this map, the countries that are colored red have no paid paternity leave. For example, in the United States, parents are entitled to 84 days of parental leave. This period of time, which is much shorter than the Swedish leave, is unpaid. In the United Kingdom, parents can take a total of 126 days of parental leave, but only 28 days a year. This is also unpaid. In comparison, the Swedish paternity leave is extremely generous. So what does foreign media say about the Swedish paternity leave? Many British media sources can be found about this subject. From an international perspective, the Swedish paternity leave is highly unusual. For example, according to Andrea Raincroft, who wrote the article Where New Dads Are Encouraged to Take Months Off, for the British Broadcasting Centre, Sweden has been encouraging fathers to take more parental leave since 1974. It was in 1974 Sweden replaced its maternity leave with joint parental leave. There's also a new incentive to get new dads to spend up to 3 months at home. This is written more about in an article published for The Guardian, a well-known British newspaper. According to this article, the Swedish government wants to increase the already extensive paternity leave. This is a step in increasing gender equality. But it's not only British media that currently advocates the uniqueness of the Swedish paternity leave. The US-based daily newspaper, The New York Times, published an article in 2012 regarding this subject. In the article, In Sweden, Men Can Have It All, Karin Benholt writes that 85% of the Swedish fathers take parental leave. Another American media source, the online newspaper The Economist, has also written about this subject. In their article, Why Swedish Men Take So Much Paternity Leave, they write about the reasons to Sweden having a very unusual amount of parental leave. So why does Sweden have such an extensive paternity leave compared to other countries? What are the major reasons? We interviewed 2 fathers to find out what their experiences as stay-at-home dads in Sweden were like.
What is the attitude towards paternity leave? I think it's quite normal. I think any parent that has any dad that would have the opportunity to take time off with their kids would enjoy doing so.
Quite good. It's really common at the big companies in Sweden that you, as a dad, are home with your kids, and that's okay.
I think it's quite normal. I think any parent that has any dad that would have the opportunity to take time off with their kids would enjoy doing so. Strange in a good sense, I would say. Strange in the sense that that it's that we have so much time actually, in these first period in your kid's life to actually enjoy spending time with him or her.
The international is you have more opportunities in Sweden than international, I think.
After listening to these interviews, we concluded that paternity leave is very normal in Sweden, but internationally it's quite unusual. To find out the reasons behind Sweden's extensive paternity leave, we interviewed an expert in this area, the university lecturer Roger Klint. Roger teaches gender studies at Linköpings Universitet and has written a thesis about this subject. We interviewed him over the telephone and asked him a few questions about paternity.
Yes, that's a good question. It has historical reasons to begin with, because it's very connected to the generous welfare state, welfare entitlements in Sweden in the large picture. We have built up that kind of welfare state since the 1930s in Sweden, and it found its form more and more during the 1970s and onwards. So that's part of our political model, so to speak. So it's not just about parental leave or paternity leave, it's the whole social welfare system at large, I would say. It's rather unusual in an international perspective. Most countries, even in Europe, don't have paternity leave at all. And of course, it's unusual in their eyes to give Swedish fathers a right like this, which costs a lot of money, of course, and then it's connected to some kind of equality policy in general. And I think it looks unusual in their eyes, because in, for example, the Mediterranean countries or many southern European countries, it's very uncommon for men to take that kind of responsibility for the care of their kids. And we have that tradition and develop that tradition more and more in Sweden. And I think it's simply like that. It's unusual in their eyes. Pretty much like that, yes.
So, what are the reasons behind this unusual system? After reading articles, observing facts and statistics, interviewing both experts and real stay-at-home dads, we reached a conclusion that there are three major reasons. So, the parental leave benefit is paid by the Social Insurance Agency in Sweden. But what is the Social Insurance Agency? It is a government agency in Sweden that administers any kind of social insurance, and it's mostly tax finance. Approximately 15% of the gross domestic product of Sweden went to the Social Insurance Agency. And with a lot of income, they can afford a lot of expenses, and parental leave is one big expense. As mentioned in the interview, the fact that Sweden is a rather socialistic country implies that the government has a huge amount of money that is divided through the population, and by making democratic government decidings, the Swedish state has imposed several laws in order to increase gender equality, and one of those is the generous paternity leave. The strong socialist ideology that is found in Sweden has made it possible to achieve this kind of equality. The generous paternity leave has its roots in socialism, and Swedish socialism has its roots in late 19th century Sweden. Ever since socialism came to Sweden, more and more rights has been implied to the people. It was in the 1918 government, led by the Social Democratic Party in Sweden, that made women's voting rights a reality. In 1976, motherly leave was replaced with a co-operated parental leave. This decision was also driven by the Social Democratic Party in 1974. And today, it's mainly the socialistic parties that advocate for a third daddy month. The third major reason for the extensive paternity leave in Sweden is the social reason. Sweden does not only have a very socialistic politics, but also a deeply socialistic culture. Concerning gender equality, Sweden is ranked the 15th best country in the world, according to UNDP's Gender Index. This, of course, is a reason for the generous paternity leave, since Sweden always strives towards more equality between men and women. Paternity leave is a norm in the Swedish society. Dads can be seen everywhere, from pushing their children in wagons to drinking coffee with other dads. In other countries, perhaps, this would be seen as strange. In Sweden, though, it is very accepted, and since society is so equal, it is rather frowned upon when fathers do not take parental leave. Throughout this film, we have tried to analyze this generous Swedish paternity leave. We have concluded that reasons behind this phenomenon is political, historical, and social reasons. Politically, the socialistic politics, together with the will of equality, has made it possible to achieve a generous paternity leave. Historically, Sweden as a country has taken several major steps towards a gender egalitarian nation, such as approving women's voting rights, having a joint parental leave, and now striving towards a more equal parental leave. And social. As we can conclude from history, equality is something that has been evident in Sweden's culture since the beginning of its time.
To keep on holding on, holding on, holding on, holding on, to keep on holding on.